Where to even start with this one, Justin? I'm with Stylist Substance again. Justin, how you been lately?
I'm doing okay, all things considered. I still have limited access to editing, so I'm here. Um, yeah, so I just watched American Beauty the other day, and this was a film that at one point of time I really liked, especially when I really started getting into film. I really liked this film. I admired like the acting, I admired the cinematography, I admired pretty much everything about it. Um, then I didn't watch it for about 6 years. Rewatched it. It's not good, in my opinion. It's really not good.
Yeah, no, I think it's aged pretty terribly. Um, and even for its time, it was as you've commented, pretty milk toast. But I guess to be accepted by the Academy and normies back in 1999, you couldn't be daring or that experimental. Because I've always considered the film kind of just a glorified exploitation film in a lot of ways.
I could definitely see that if we look at like not only the depictions of teenagers in it, but also if we look at like the voyeuristic aspect with the neighbor kid Ricky and his
Yeah.
camera. Like, Thora Birch's character like falls for him, and like I don't think that really gives a sufficient justification for his voyeuristic tendencies. I think like he just
No, but
frames it
the
as like,
entire Chris Cooper, Wes Bentley family is a fucking cartoon. Um,
mm,
I think that you mentioned this to me, like you were messaging me on Twitter while you were watching
mhm,
it, and you said like its greatest strength and weakness is its writing. And
mhm.
I think that's entirely true. I actually do like Alan Ball, but if you're interested in this like really close look, if you're interested in like a dissection or possibly a deconstruction of like the modern American nuclear family or whatever, he does all of this shit so much better in 6 Feet Under, which he would get into like two
Mm,
years later, a great television show that
mhm.
has basically the same beats as American Beauty, but done correctly, done in a refined way, done in a very
Right.
mature way. That's really not exploitation. This film is highly like it could be if it was it could be a grindhouse movie from the 70s if it was made shittier. It really could. A
Mhm.
lot of aspects of this, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, but I can see that, but I think at the same time, like as I was saying, one of its greatest strengths, like there is a lot here that is just interesting. I feel like the character dynamics, like the whole situation at hand, I think is interesting. Like the ideas that it poses, but I don't. I think it's an insufficient exploration of those ideas. Of like the hardships of the American working class and the American
Mhm.
nuclear family at this time in America. I think like not only I think it's really shallow in a lot of ways. Oddly enough, like this is one of the films that I've totally 180'd on. Unfortunately, at one point I really liked it, but I just can't see it that way now
Yeah, the only
because
thing I
like.
really enjoy about it is yeah, the performances are still like on point.
Mhm,
Um, that the characters they portray are completely shallow, mostly one dimensional, and if they even have two dimensions, it really just complements the first one. There's really no depth to a lot of these people, but the
no.
performances are kind of wonderful. Wonderfully casted film, and I think it's a pretty wonderfully acted one, considering
Yeah.
some of the like problematic or questionable or just stupid things that they
Mhm.
have to do. Like Kevin Spacey does kill it in this. Kevin Spacey and Annette Bening both kill it, but Kevin Spacey having to go like that was the car I wanted. I wanted it for so long. I got it. It is mine. I rule. Like and pulling that off, like
Yeah,
that takes a bit of self awareness and skill at the same time.
yeah, I think in a lot of ways it works in that respect. I think like even just like on a basic like filmmaking level, like shot composition, all of that, it works. I think Mendez is good at directing. He's good at directing actors. He knows his way behind the camera, but the stories that he tells, the messages that he's conveying, are not that. grand. I feel like, or
Oh,
not bad,
I think
insightful.
Sam Mendes is a hack. I think he's always been a kind of hacky filmmaker. Like I really don't like
I
Road to Perdition at all. I think Skyfall's his best movie, and that's simply The Dark Knight with all the kinks worked out. It's nothing like
yeah.
spectacular. It's just Dark Knight with a philosophy that doesn't give me a sour taste in my mouth. That's
Mhm.
it.
I'm not
Um,
I'm not a fan of James Bond personally, but like I
that's
can.
totally fine, and I'm not the biggest fan of James Bond,
Mhm.
but it should show you that Mendes is, to me, pretty fucking hackneyed. He's
Well,
really
yeah,
not that good.
I'm not sure if I'd go so far as to say he's a hack, but I think like at least based off of this film, I don't have all that of a great impression of him in terms of like being like an
As a
idea
filmmaker, he
person.
seems
But
to
like,
lack a personality. Like, there's really not
mhm.
a whole lot of personality to his filmmaking. That's why, if I talk about this film, if I speak about any sort of authorial intent, I usually go to Alan Ball because I can see Alan Ball's personality in the script writing and how it transferred over to his
Yeah.
later work.
Hmm.
Like, this is a truly script. The script propels. It's all the momentum comes from the script in this film. The
The
composition
script
to
and
me
then
is just
the
like,
actors. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like the composition, Sam Mendes, it doesn't really, I outside of one sequence that I think was like incredibly well done, the I'm going to buy this house today kind of breakdown.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the best moments of the film. I feel like.
but there's really not a whole lot of inspired moments outside of that. It's kind of, to me,
I'm
bare
not.
minimum.
I'm not sure if I entirely agree with you on there not being other inspiring moments. I think like you could view it as shallow, but there's definitely some memorable iconography in this. Like just like like the girl in like the rose petal bathtub, like her on the ceiling. Like there's all sorts of even like the bag blowing in the wind. Like all of that is memorable. I feel like so many of the scenes, in my opinion, are memorable. But the thing is, if you think
But
of
to me,
like the
it's like he didn't
tag,
romantic. He didn't film it correctly or didn't film it inspiringly. That's to me symbolism from the screenplay that just someone you
yeah,
put Mina Savari in
they,
a bathtub of rose petals. It's
that's
going to be engaging to look at. Period.
I think
That's it.
like if you look at like the tagline to this film, it's "Look closer." But I think that when you do that, all you pretty much get is more superficial.
Yeah, superficial dressing
I
all
think,
over it.
yep. Like if you peel that layer of superficiality, you just get more superficiality. And I think that that works in something like American Psycho because that's kind of the point there. Because like beyond the shallow aesthetic is just a void, the black hole
Well,
heart
yeah.
of Patrick Bateman. Mhm.
If you were to argue to me that this film it's like two contradictory forces involved. Because American Psycho works so well because it's a
Yeah,
satire. It's a scathing satire. American Beauty could be a perfect satire, but it's not a satire. It is completely
I
serious.
I think even if there's satirical elements to it, I don't think it really effectively conveys those, and I don't think it
No,
quite works because I think like it's trying to say that there's beauty in everything, including like the things we take for granted in life. Like even like when it comes to like I mean, if you look at like the mundane, the ugly, the superficial image of Americana, there's beauty to be found in it that I think is supposed to be innate to it. And I think this would explain why there's a grocery bag blowing around in the wind that Ricky films, and he sees this as the most beautiful thing in the world. Because in a way, it's like it's a container for consumer goods, but it's now abandoned as trash that's like tossed around at the wind's mercy. I think maybe this suggests that there's beauty behind the commercial underpinnings of our economic reality, and it's part of the beauty in life. But I think if we were to look at it like that, it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't quite work at the same time because you also get scenes that contradict this with Lester saying, "This is just a couch. This isn't life." And I and I know that the film doesn't completely align with Lester's mentality with his pursuit, but in some ways it does though. Like in some ways, like it's empathizing with him.
well, I think that his demographic is absolutely supposed to like vicarious. That demographic is probably supposed to live vicariously through Kevin Spacey's decisions and ultimately be shamed for their desires. I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the point.
yeah, but like it's bad that he puts his family at jeopardy, like his family at risk, by quitting his job. But he gets money from that too. And the job, I mean, I think like in some ways the film is critiquing like these like I mean he works at an advertising agency. You can't get more like kind of more commercial than that.
It's very lazy. It's a very lazy critique.
Yeah,
I think I'm saying that if it
yeah.
were a satire, I would like it
Mhm.
a lot more. It's really interesting for the 90s. This film is so emblematic and kind of iconic of 90s filmmaking, and yet it really doesn't possess like the self-reference or the
Well,
self-awareness that most 90s films were known for. This to me is a really dated film, especially for other films in
yeah.
1999
Well,
that dealt
y-
with the same kind
mhm.
of materials.
Well, I mean, like if you look at like the white collar working class resistance to the establishment, you can see that in like classics like Fight Club, The Matrix, and probably Office Space too. And I think that those are all better films, and I think like they're more culturally resonant in the end too because there's more of a point to them. I feel like you could view them as sort of shallow in some ways, possibly, but probably you can probably get something more out of them in other ways. And I think that in a lot of ways you don't really need American Beauty. Even beyond like those obvious like similar films, you get other films from 1999, uh,
Yeah.
like that deal with like sexual and marital frustrations, like Eyes Wide Shut. You have like a collage of individuals intersecting lives in Magnolia, and then like
I feel
you
like it's
have
almost a thin red line Saving Private Ryan comparison to like if you want to see
well, okay,
American Beauty done correctly.
the virgin suicides,
Yeah,
yeah, like
it's the Virgin Suicides.
underage blonde girls are pushed over the edge by society that objectifies but also
Yeah,
restricts
this
them.
isn't just me
And
being obsessed with Sofia Coppola. Like that's if you watch those two movies side by side, they're trying to express the same sort of things, but Coppola is just a
well,
much better filmmaker. It's a much more
it's
sophisticated telling of
yes,
it.
and it's like what was on like the mindsets of all these different people in America during like the turn of the century. And then like if you think about like you have like these scenes of those videotapes, and I don't feel like it really does much with them. It's
He just
just I think
adds him
it's just
into a fucking
voyeurism.
cartoon character. Isn't he like some like wizard drug dealer too? Like I hate that
Yeah,
entire character. I hate his entire family. It is so problematic.
when I rewatched it, I did not like that character nearly as much. I feel like he's just kind of like taking advantage of Thora Birch's character, Jane, the daughter. And it's like, but what I was trying to say is like with the videotapes, like I think in some ways like it's kind of used as this form of exploitation, but then also it's trying to say no, actually it captures like beauty. I think like he said that he was like filming like a homeless woman or something, and it's like that's just exploitation. Peering into like his neighbor's house as the father works out naked. That's voyeurism. Watching like teenage girls, and I think that she was supposed to be like 16. He is 18. Like it's just voyeurism. It's just exploitation. He may have like things going on in his life that kind of give you some sympathy for him. Like he's been to like a mental institution at some point or something along those lines. He has like that strict father of his that beats him. That is like overtly homophobic, probably to conceal like his own sexual frustrations. But it's like I don't think it really works. I don't think a lot of this works. I don't think the videotapes work. If you look at something like the Blair Witch Project, also from the same year, I think that like deals with like using cameras to not only as a way of like kind of capturing the suffering of these people, but also it's a mean for them to survive, like to keep themselves going. And here it's just kind of like it captures this artificial reality, but like and you have like towards the beginning of the film like that fake out where you think, oh, his daughter's going to kill him. But then, like right afterwards, in the actual scene when you see it play out later, she says, "I'm not serious. You know that, right?" And this is like right after, like he turns the camera off. So it's
Well, that
like
that whole contrived or fucking even facile who done it thing just adds to my exploitation point. Like it's just all like you have to wonder who's gonna kill him because everybody fucking wants to by the end of the movie because the film posits he's expressing his
Yeah,
true self.
and they don't even want to. Well, I mean, besides maybe his daughter, they don't want to kill him because he's trying to prey on a teenager. That's
Well,
not
that's where we get
like
into an argument, though. That would be where we would get into an argument because I think
uh,
the film is pretty fucking pretty much an exploitation movie, and I think
mhm.
the argument can certainly be made that he's being preyed upon
Oh,
easily.
by Angela.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
she's
but she's
basically like trying to make him come in his pants in front of her his daughter. She knows what her first lines, right, are about weaponizing her sexuality and how she likes that men fantasize about her. I know that that's like an exterior, but at the same
well,
time,
yeah,
she is
but
definitely
I think
preying on an older man. And I'm not saying that's a right thing to express artistically, but I'm saying I think that's what American Beauty is expressing right up until the very
that
fucking
that well,
end.
yeah, but this is like he is the one that comes onto her first, and she recognizes that, and then she uses that. She starts liking the idea, like, hey, this guy is into me, and the whole thing, and this is where we were kind of disagreeing on Twitter. I think like in some ways I'm kind of like most empathetic towards Angela. She is, don't get me wrong, she is superficial, she is coy, but I think like the look closer part actually works for her, unlike other characters. I feel like if you peel that layer back, they just become more superficial. I think for her, she ultimately is a victim not only of predatory behavior, but also she is a virgin. Which she knows she wants to be seen as better, as more worthy, as less ordinary, and she does that by making herself an object of desire for other people. When Lester seduces her, he's like, "You're the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Like you are a thing." But then, like when she reveals herself, like I'm a virgin, her vulnerabilities are exposed. They become recontextualized, and Lester resists the temptation of giving in. And I think at that point, you're supposed to view her as a person, not as an object of desire. Like I feel like in a lot of ways, like she's still the object in the end, you know?
Yeah, she's not just objectified. She's actually like infantilized as well. Um, the whole film's about having your cake and eating it too, right? But she's not only objectified, she's infantilized. So the film is trying to give her more individuality, more
It
expression,
doesn't.
but by limiting her
Well, yeah,
subject, by
it's all
limiting
about
her as
because
an
it's like
individual, right?
like, oh hey, you're a person, but actually you're just a kid. Like I don't know. It's such a weird message. I feel like.
Exactly. In my opinion, she was a more robust character when she was just that superficial, very problematic Lolita character. A bit more of a robust character, at least a more autonomous one for sure. Then you make her more individual by stripping her of her perceived human experience at the same time.
Well, yeah, but then it also gives her a little more humanity to her just by like saying like, hey, she's a kid. But then like, I don't know. It seems to serve more Lester than her because
Well, it
like
just seems like a like an awkward way to give a character more characterization by removing her of her of her individuality or of everything that she's made up for herself by removing her of her own self-made personality.
yeah, because if you think about like that scene, like Lester is like when he realizes that she's a virgin, like it's like, oh well, now I shouldn't be with you because you're just a kid.
Exactly.
You're just a kid. He's like, you have nothing to be sorry about. You have nothing to be sorry about. And I'm just thinking, well, do you, Lester? Do you have anything to say? Are you sorry about anything? This is all
Exactly.
about.
The film tries to shoehorn that shit where like the kids are the innocent ones. Like we're impure. We have to keep our kids innocent. It's the oh my god, so antiquated, so archaic. It's such a stupid fucking thing.
she's only really friends with Jane. I feel like either to get with Lester or and also so she feels more pretty. But
Yeah, she hangs out with her because she's more attractive than her. I think she's a mega bitch. Completely. No redeeming qualities whatsoever, except for that final, incredibly superficial scene. I think everything you said would work if we were talking about Kirsten Dunst in The Virgin Suicides. That's a perfect analysis of her character. Of this one, it's someone who torments her friend. It's someone who torments her best friend by coming on to her father
yeah, but
instigating the
yeah, but she's
behavior of her father
but
and just
she's
calling her new boyfriend a psycho for trying to take her away from a completely dangerous situation.
yeah, but at the same yeah, but at the same time, like when like Ricky like Ricky's this drug dealer. You know, he has like a totally like pimped out room with like all these different things, all these video cameras, and like clients everywhere. Even though he just moved into that town, as far as I know. But
Yeah,
you know he's able to do whatever, and like like I think Angela is right when she tells Lester that Jane thinks that she's in love but isn't necessarily in love. Like she falls for the first guy that basically treats her as I mean, in my opinion, I think Ricky objectifies Jane with the camera, and I think Angela is right when she tells Lester she thinks she's in love. She says it sarcastically because she's judgmental of that relationship, but at the same time, she's also
because
jealous.
she's jealous. The first time she talks about Ricky is like, he didn't even look at me.
That is true, but at the same, well,
Like,
she is. I think in a lot of ways, like
all
she's
right.
a victim.
In my opinion, dude. In my opinion, she has way more in common with that Lolita archetype that we've seen in Grindhouse for fucking 50 years than she does with Lutz in The Virgin Suicides, and she does with any character with any sort of depth. I think she is that Lolita character, and the only reason why we're talking about her any differently is because when Kevin Spacey could grab her tits, he didn't.
Yeah, and
Like ultimately, I think that's where that's where that character's depth ends.
I mean, don't get me
And
wrong.
like, how dare they? How dare they not give her any depth? How dare they not give her any depth until that moment, until that
Well,
exact moment?
well, yeah.
They only give her depth so that Kevin
So
Spacey could have a decent human reaction to it, not so she could have a
yeah,
characterization
it's
point.
almost like a plot twist, which I
Yes,
mean, which
exactly. It is a plot twist, and but it's there to kind of humanize and make you feel pity for Kevin Spacey's character who's about to die.
and
I think that's all that is for.
somewhat, I sort of agree. And by the way, I do agree she's a superficial character. I think all of them are superficial. I just like on this viewing, I latched onto her a little more because I was empathetic towards the fact that she's not only a
Oh, I
victim
latch
of
onto
Kevin.
her and Thora Birch's character all the time. Those two characters are the only characters with any to me semblance of actual depth that you
Yeah,
could possibly like
yeah,
analyze in a way.
I think
I
so.
think that Angela's character falls flat in the end, whereas Thora Birch's
I think she
probably
falls
does too.
flat
This is a
too.
very problematic movie. Like I have to surrender the analysis to what I consider are the film's like problematic goals. Like I really do think the goal of this film with Angela's character was almost pure
Yeah,
exploitation.
I think they don't really do anything sufficient with her character where it's like, oh, like you could make an argument that well, we're seeing things through the eyes of like Kevin Spacey's character because he's the one who narrates things, so it makes sense for the super. But my argument against that is, if that's the case, why do you have so many scenes with his daughter, with his wife, with
It's so that their target audience.
it doesn't these collage of intersecting lives doesn't quite add up because we have it framed in a way like Sunset Boulevard where the dead person narrates the story, but it's like what is he seeing this happen? Is it like what is this framing exactly? As far as I remember, and
Exactly.
it's
Well,
been a while since I've seen Sunset Boulevard, but as far as I remember, every scene has that character in it, the narrator, as far as I remember.
I mean, let's see.
Until the very ending scene.
From my perspective, just one last thing about Angela, real quick. I love in the Virgin Suicides that it shows any sort of self mythologizing. If you make a god, or yeah, even if you make a god out of a woman, you're depriving her of her humanity. If you make an object out of a person, I don't think that's really
Yeah,
I don't think that's really well developed in this film. I understand that's like that's what's happening, but it's just not well
it's not.
developed.
It's not. She's a victim
Because
she's a victim of a cultural objectification of
and
girls like her, but at the
and
same time, like
she's also a completely willing participant in it. And I
well,
think her character, all these
she's a
characters to me
kid.
just
She's a
serve
kid
to the
though.
target audience.
Well, I'll tell
The film
you
doesn't
what.
frame her as a kid. The film doesn't frame her as such. The film doesn't frame any kid as a kid until Kevin Spacey is about to get shot in the head and he looks at a picture of his daughter and remembers it's a kid. Like that's kind of the point of the movie as well. I think that's why we see so many scenes with his daughter, because I think the target demographic, the target audience are people Kevin Spacey's age.
Well, where she's like smiling at being like filmed by the creep next to
Yeah.
her, and it's like,
It's about superficially remembering these are children, so maybe don't fuck them and maybe don't neglect them. And that's fucking weird. That's a weird way to show me that. And
yeah,
like I feel like that should be a given. Like that should just be obvious already. And like you can't spend 2 hours
it's not
gassing me
even.
up with like
It's not even.
Mina Savari on the ceiling and rose petals. You can't spend 2 hours fucking doing that just to like at the very end go like I'm a man of decency and I love my daughter. Uh-oh, tragedy.
Well, at the same time, I think everybody like wants to kill him in the end, and they don't even have. A lot of them don't even have sufficient reasons. Surely not Ricky's dad, Frank Fitz.
No, well, we'll get into that in like 1 second because that's a can of worms.
That was a whole other thing.
But it is a very milquetoast kind of way of telling you like all the things that you want to do, all those fantasies you want to see realized in your own life. They're really shallow and superficial. And if you were to take existential control of your life and your dilemma, you should spend that time building up your family. It's the most milquetoast fucking message to give a '90s audience.
Well,
It really is. Like
yeah,
it's kind of grossly grossly simple.
Are you not? But are you not supposed to like take Lester's "this is just a couch, this isn't life" spiel seriously? Are you not supposed to take like his triumph of raising his middle finger against like the system in place that has like abused their own power?
Well,
To
no,
like
because I think that like ultimately the final minutes of the film are telling you like all that was misplaced and it should have been invested in his daughter, in his own family, in the children.
in some ways, but not in every way. I feel like
Well, that just speaks to the film's
I
inadequacies and
feel like
inconsistencies.
I feel like it's about finding balance, which is sort of how I view Fight Club. But I think Fight Club does everything way better. But like,
I think it's telling a whole bunch of fucking people like you might want to fuck your daughter's hot friend, but hey, remember they're kids.
or
Like-
basically like, oh, but if they're virgins, like, oh, hey, wait a second, this is just like my daughter. Oh my goodness, it's like, you know what? This movie sucks.
I do.
This movie is garbage. This movie is garbage. I like aspects of it, but I think like, and this is completely divorced from all the Kevin Spacey shenanigans that like.
Well, it
like,
certainly
even if
doesn't
it's
help the
removed-
film age well. The film aged
No.
like milk because of fucking Spacey being kind of creepy, man. Like,
Okay.
that's why it's so
let's get
hard
to
for me to argue that I think that he's being preyed on because he's been exposed as a fucking predator, like in real life.
So I mean, I don't think it's good to say that like kids are preying upon the adults. I think he's definitely, even if it's mutual, I think he's ultimately the predator in that film. But I think like a movie like Lolita.
I think that like by our standards of like no, I think by our universal standards of morality, like the world we live in, then he's certainly the predator. But in the film's really problematic world, he is not the predator.
Okay, I agree with that. Okay, that's what I agree with. But I guess like I have to.
I feel like I just should say that since like I don't know. This film compels me to say really problematic things because I think the film is trying to express really problematic things. Yeah, exactly. So like. When I'm saying these things, when I'm saying these things, I do think that that teenagers are fucking kids. I do believe that. I just don't believe that the film expresses that until the very end, and it's just so stupid. It's just so stupid when they do. I just wanted to declare that.
You get breast shots of both of the girls in this film. Not like I think that's like. I mean, look,
I think that reveals the film's exploitative nature.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially, one of them's even like captured like on like the camera of Ricky. But the real problem. I
just wanted to get that out before we jumped into Kevin. Yeah.
Well, no, before we jump into Kevin Spacey, let's talk about Um,
Uh,
let's talk about
Chris Cooper kiss.
yeah, the
That
real.
shit should have won best. That shit should have won best kiss at the MTV Movie Awards that year. That would have been amazing. I fucking hate that scene. That's one of the worst scenes in the history of fucking scenes.
If any of you don't remember, in American Beauty, there's a point where Ricky's father kicks him out for being gay, which is also just a misconception. He wasn't gay, and then he visits the person Lester, the person who he thinks is his son's boyfriend, or like somebody that's that's paying to prostitute. Um, he visits him to express his own sexual frustrations. Like he cries in the
Dude,
rain. Like
there are fucking there are Austin Powers style gags here presented as like as very true and brutal. Remember when he's looking or something, he thinks that his son is blowing him, and it's literally like an Austin Powers gag in a tent where you think sexual activity like it's so poor.
Well, the idea there, I think the idea there is like you're supposed to look closer, like what he's seeing is what he.
That's so
in
dumb.
some ways, but in some ways, he sees what he wants to see, and it's like
the Chris Cooper character doesn't belong in a fucking in anywhere. But go on.
He played the role
Cooper
well.
Characters.
He played the role well.
Yeah, because he's a great actor.
He's a terrible character. I mean, he's even
he and his wife and oh my god, what a fucking train wreck of a character.
Oh, okay.
What a fucking train wreck of a scene.
Okay, explain why you think the scene is problematic.
You go first for a second. I got someone walking a dog next to me, and I don't feel like talking about internalized homophobia.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think well, first of all, I think the message of the scene is really muddled. Is really unclear. You have I think like in terms of like caricaturizing gay people. I mean, I think like I think the film is trying to be like pro LGB. I don't say LGBT because it's 1999. I think it's supposed to be pro LGB, but at the same time, I think like it caricaturizes those gay neighbors, and then like what you have now is like a repressed Nazi question mark former soldier that's like trying to maintain like these idealized conservative values that's like extremely bigoted. Like actually, the homophobe is gay all along, and I'm not saying that idea doesn't have some merit in some stories, but here it's just done so astronomically terrible. I feel like
that as well because it could easily be read as
especially considering
he's just having a psychotic.
Yeah.
He's just having a psychotic breakdown, a complete breakdown, and wants to experience what his son experienced that he feels is so dishonorable and worth dying over.
So basically,
well.
in some ways he's sexualizing his kid in a roundabout way by like visiting the person visiting the person he believes to have like been with him. That's a little weird.
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time, Alan Ball, of course, we must go back to Alan Ball, who is a gay writer, and is making all these very problematic statements with this. And it's not like 6 Feet Under does heavily represent gay characters and queer characters as well.
Well,
and sometimes it's pretty problematic there too.
I would say to vaguely defend his characterized gay neighbors. I would say that in a lot of ways, in like the opening scene especially, everybody is like kind of like the idealized Americana, contributors, if that makes sense. Like the insecure teenager, like the the working class dad, like the wife that's striving for perfection.
The film tries to have its cake and eat it too. So like they try to do that ironic stereotype of gays.
Yeah, but
you do have Scott Bakula and his husband, and they're really fit and they're really involved in their community, and they're kind of like they're more put together than our main characters. And then you have the opposite of that, which is like kind of the problematic stereotype, the one that is kind of corrosive and kind of awful, which is Chris Cooper's psychopathic response to his own internalized homophobia and realizing that his son might be gay.
Yeah.
So like it tries to present both.
Well, it's more like I won't call it internalized homophobia because I think that would suggest that he's not consciously aware of his
Oh yeah, he's
homophobia. He's like
consciously aware of
really,
it.
it's
Internalized homosexuality.
yeah, yeah, or like or homoerotic tendencies to some extent. Like I'm not convinced that he doesn't love his wife or anything like that,
I
but
can at
like
least say internal self-hate. Oh, I'm convinced
yeah,
he doesn't love his wife. Does she have a line of dialogue?
yeah, she does,
Like,
but it's just like she's just kind of like not all there.
yeah, she seems to be
But
completely controlled and dominated by Chris Cooper.
well, what I mean by that is I'm not really sure if like he's supposed to be like gay or bi or what I'm meaning. Um, but
Or
like,
even in that
but
running, he could just be fucking psychopathic.
but basically, people are trying to kind of maintain like a sense of normalcy, but also be happy within that. But they're just not happy within it. Like he's trying to like um, hold together like the semblance of the American family, just as Lester's family is. But which is why he's like so outwardly like homophobic. But like,
There's also two opposing things. He's trying to hold his family together by force and by complete order,
yeah,
whereas I guess Lester has gone fucking crazy by anarchy, if you can say that. So it's order versus it's the old V for Vendetta fucking paradox. I'm kidding.
yeah,
But at the same time it kind of is terribly done, though. And but at the end, it sacrifices itself to responsibility, which isn't a bad message. It's just a severely milquetoast one and a half-hearted one after all of the exploitation you've shown me, and even his death to me is exploitation fodder.
oh yeah, like
As
I know, I remember, and I've seen this movie many times because this was like one of the first like rated R. Because I didn't really watch many R-rated films when I was younger. This is one of the first ones, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. All these like complicated adult dynamics. Now that I'm an adult,
mhm.
or I mean, I'm a young adult, but like I look at this and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like I
And
like
it's wild to me how much of this can just be applied to the Virgin Suicides, even the questionable Nazi
well,
shit. I don't know if you remember, but Lutz's father, played by James Woods, is putting together Nazi airplane models. Like there is
oh
still that
was he?
Nazism in suburbia as well. Yeah, like even
I
that
need to
can be
rewatch
transferred
it.
over.
I need to rewatch it. Well,
It's
then like
yeah.
I mean, then you get like, and then if you look at something like Fight Club, like which is from the same year, you have the this is just a couch speech. You have you have him quitting his job. You have him blackmailing his boss. You have all those things in Fight Club that I think that personally, I don't like Fight Club. I think that they're done way better. You have The Matrix. You have Office Space. Similar things. They all do
No,
similar
no, I
things.
love that you. I
You
love that you
don't
said that
need
like
American
Mike.
Beauty.
Yeah, you essentially said that Mike Judge did it better with Office Space, which
Yeah.
is a really fucking that's a really good take. But no, yeah, but Fight Club at least has the self-awareness to know that it's like it's a paradoxical movie. I
Yeah.
don't think that American Beauty thinks that it's inconsistent when it is so blindingly inconsistent.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. But maybe it's trying to say that the superficial is beautiful. But I don't know. If that's the case, it's not. It's not a good message. I think. Like, I think it's just like superficiality, you know. Um, but
I think it's a film that rebels against the nuclear family and then at the end promotes it
well,
completely.
yeah, but maybe it's trying to say that hey, actually there are good things about the nuclear family. But then it's just like I feel like a lot of it's like too late, too late. But maybe it's too late for Lester, so maybe we're supposed to feel like it's too late. But then it's like I don't know. But I think like here, I think it's interesting because I don't know if I'm really articulating myself correctly because like I just think like the whole movie is a huge mess. And if you look at it,
I
if you
think it's a huge mess too, and I think you're doing slightly better than me because I had to take I had to take the defense of a child predator. It's
well with the
fucking
film,
it's what it
I
made
feel
me
like the
do.
film like ask of us to at the same time.
Yeah, and it's hard to remove but like it's like watching an exploitation movie. It's like watching Ilsa, She Wolf the SS. Like you have to remove your own moral compass from the movie and accept the film's twisted
Well,
one
yeah,
instead.
I feel like, and it's been a while since I've seen Lolita by Stanley Kubrick, but I feel like that does like the whole sexual predator thing better, like with more like satirical elements. I don't feel like this is really satirizing
Yeah, yeah,
things.
because it is a comedy. Yeah, it's completely.
Well,
It's
yeah,
much
and
better
then like
that way.
you get like I don't know if you've seen Happiness or not. I have mixed thoughts on that film.
Yeah, I have.
I think it does. I think it does a lot of these ideas better too. Like, and not just the year before. Like all these movies, they all these you don't need American Beauty. I feel like you have all these other
No.
movies that do, and it's like, and
That's what I was
maybe
saying. It's so emblematic and iconic of the '90s, where to me it doesn't share the same kind of innovativeness or truthfulness or like philosophical know-how that any other '90s movie did. Even pop '90s movies showed more
well,
know-how,
yeah, and
more
and that's
understanding.
why I'm like pointing to films like Office Space and Matrix because like and Blair Witch Project because like these are also popular films, you know. These are
Mm.
well-known films. They're culturally resonant films. I'm not going to be like pointing to like some obscure thing because no, I think
No, the
like
most obscure thing we've talked about is the Virgin
and
Suicides,
that's
and that's a huge movie.
not obscure. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
but
I mean, we don't have to go deep.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like you can look at like you don't have to look closer at other movies.
Be-
Like you
Because
have
you can
these movies
absolutely
that
say,
well, I guess Happiness is a little more obscure, but like
yeah, but
the
you can absolutely say that the '90s were interested in investigating these kind of tropes, the kind of family dynamic, and what is the general philosophy of the '90s? Because it seemed even postmodern. It seemed to be without
even
ideology.
like in the early '90s with like The Simpsons, that's when like that became big.
Yeah.
Like you know,
I
like
really think that
that's
like the first real philosophical film of the '90s, is probably like Jarmusch really entered
mhm,
into this place in a really entered into '90s cinema in a huge way with like Mystery Train and shit.
mhm.
No, Night on Earth, right? And like even his movies were almost devoid of ideology because all ideologies had been deconstructed until they were meaningless. So the rest of the '90s was about building up a new ideology, like a new thing on top of postmodernism, a new thing on top of a godless culture, and a media obsessed one,
Well,
which
yeah,
American Beauty didn't seem to get the memo about. It didn't seem to get like the memo that we've made a lot of progress, and a lot of the things that they've discussed have like been thoroughly excavated by things like Happiness, by even Office Space, as you've mentioned before,
yeah,
and Magnolia even.
yeah, Magnolia, yeah, all these movies all around the same time, and then like if you
It's one step backwards, it's one step forwards, two steps back for sure
that
with American Beauty, and what the philosophy of American filmic landscape was for all of the '90s. Like it's a pretty good trajectory until you get to American Beauty, and it seems like a step back
yeah,
for
and this
sure.
was the best. Well, but then if you look at it from like, oh hey, everything is like composed like really well. Like everything like works together really well. Everything meshes together. The cast is all great. The directing it's great. The writing, well, people think it's great. Um, and then people will think of that like, hey, this is what makes a good movie. You know, if you're like a mathematical robot, like assessing like all these like technical skills, sure. But if you're a person who actually is trying to like analyze it from a social perspective, it falls flat. It really falls flat. It falls on its head.
And
Uh,
and and speaking of
eh,
like superficialities, I just remembered this. I just want to get it out of the way. The love of my life, Miss Christina Hendricks from Mad Men and Drive. Shout out to her for being the hand model on that very famous poster. Shout out to her. Now go on. I am so sorry I had to
oh,
interrupt you with that,
you're.
but that's a fun aside.
I didn't know that's who it was. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's her hand. I think she just revealed it like a year ago that was her hand on
So
there.
is it her stomach as well?
No, just her hand.
The
Like
stomach may be
everything is
artificial.
so
I didn't
overly
know that.
designed about the film.
Whatever. This movie.
Even the marketing was like so designed that you needed to get Christina Hendricks' hand on it.
I don't know. This movie can go to hell. Like
No, it
this
really
is
it
just
really
like
absolutely can.
well, and then like, and I'm saying all this like, and when I watch movies, you know, when it comes to like separating art from artists, you know, or in this case, like the actor and stuff, like I can do it personally, but
Hmm.
sometimes I can
Yeah.
also like breathe new life to it. I'm not saying that you necessarily need to or should,
Yes.
but I'm saying I'm able to. I'm able to remove myself, and acting has never been like the most important thing to me when it comes to films, but
But it
here
is
it's
for
like
normies though, and that's why this movie is so liked because acting is really important for fucking normal people out there.
oh, that whole gay scene takes a whole other level when you think about how like Kevin Spacey responded to a sexual assault allegation or sexual misconduct allegation. I guess it was assault, right? Yeah, he groped somebody. Well, he got like 13 of those, but he responded to like the first one with, "I don't remember that, but by the way, I'm gay." Uh, like
I mean,
that's and then if you look at like the scene where where he tells Chris Cooper that he's not gay or whatever, and then like I don't know. And then there's the whole predatory aspect. I don't know. It's
Yeah, it makes it difficult. But as someone who has worshipped at the altar of Polanski before, I really have no issue separating art from the artist, and I think that the
well
art in
sometimes
this case is equally as problematic as the artist was in real
well
life.
yeah well Polanski
So
I haven't seen a Polanski film in a while, but I like
I just
quite a
used
few
him
of
as
them.
like a kind of blanket example of a deeply problematic
Well, yeah.
person who
For
you
me,
can.
it's more like I can like assess these films from a sociological point of view. Like I think like Polanski is quite a troubled person,
Yes.
and he's done some bad things. I
Yes.
can look at his films under that lens too.
Yeah,
But
and
with
it
American,
adds a layer of catharsis to the films when you look at it under that lens. If you look at it under the lens of our modern day knowledge with American Beauty, it definitely hurts the film in a lot of ways.
yeah. Kevin Spacey, like I don't know. There's a lot of weird things. There's like three cases, like court cases that were against him, and then like 15 allegations, and
Hmm.
like all three of those, like those people like died or something.
Oh,
Like that's a little weird.
I'm not gonna
Oh,
entertain
no,
conspiracy
hey,
theories. So,
I'm not entertaining conspiracy theories. I'm just saying it's a little weird. That's all.
but to your
Um,
original point, I
like
can definitely say that Kevin Spacey was and gave some remarkable performances, and pretty he is emblematic of the late '90s as well. What with The Usual Suspects and Seven,
I
really,
don't.
really perfect portrayals in those films, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, he adds to those films. He's good in those movies. He's a generally good actor, and
Hmm.
I don't. I feel like I shouldn't pretend otherwise. But
I was just speaking
like,
to your original point of like you can separate.
yeah.
It's just in this case, it's a bit more difficult to do considering the subject matter.
The subject matter makes it difficult to do, but at the same time, like, even if you were to do that, it's not a good movie.
No, no. But
Like,
he's
I'm
one of
not.
those people though, like one of those omens that if you do a film with him in it in today's climate, like we have to address the
Yeah,
controversy surrounding his image.
and just and for the record, like I say, it's when I say it's not a good movie, I'm saying like in my opinion, of course. Like there's probably reasons why someone may like this movie, but like when I look at this now, it's just like, and at one point I really liked it too, but I look at this now, I'm just like, yeah, this is not good.
No,
That's how I see it. So,
no, I
but yeah,
absolutely agree. It's God, it's like it's a deeply fucked movie. It really is, and I keep going back to like the things we were just talking about that like it just pisses on and overrides like all the philosophical progression that popular remember talking pop fucking movies in the 90s were making like
yeah,
within postmodern like filmmaking which was the ethos of 90s filmmaking for sure. It just completely dismisses and disregards all of it in favor of something that would have been probably a much more compelling film in the early 70s. Like this has like a very archaic philosophy behind it for me, considering how far the 90s went into self-reference and into building up a new ideology within like a meaninglessness existence kind of thing. This one really went backwards on
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think it's time. I don't know. The way I look at it, you can look at all these movies. They portray the same ideas. They do it better. They explore the American mentality at this time, the frustrations that people had, the way that people moving into like the new millennium. It's like, you know, it doesn't do this is not that movie.
Mm-mm.
Like all these other movies do it better. There's no
Yep.
like, and not to say that like that doesn't mean that the film doesn't have merits. I think it has some merits, but like I think like it's insufficient. It does it's regressive in a lot of ways.
That's really what
It's
I'm getting at.
superficial.
Like for its time, and like we're not taking this out of its out of its context, out of its place in
Yeah,
history. Within its place in history, it is insulting to all of the progress that American popular art had made up until '99. I mean, we're talking we're talking about a fucking decade where every genre got deconstructed until it was something unrecognizable. By the beginning of the '90s, horror was fucking like horror was like New Nightmare, and then we went to Scream, and then we went to Blair Witch, unrecognizable genre by the end of the fucking decade. And I can say that for almost every popular genre of film, except apparently for the human drama, for what American Beauty was doing. It completely regressed. It completely
Yeah.
just gave the middle finger to all of these movies that came before and paved the way for a
Or
movie
like
like American
came out at
Beauty
the
to
same
be told. Yeah,
time. Yeah, or came out at the same time. It's just
definitely
like, it's
overshadowed
just like,
Sofia Coppola. I wish that was the final say on the nuclear suburban American aesthetic. I wish Coppola's film was the final say, but sadly, it's fucking American Beauty.
it does it. It does it better. I know
It,
that. It's been
it
a
does
while
it.
since I've seen that movie. Yeah,
It does it
Virgin
better. It's
Suicides.
very
Yeah.
masterful and a debut film. It doesn't matter that it's a debut film, but it's just masterful. Just does it. Just does it. Does what American Beauty tries to do perfectly. American Beauty just has that kind of normie respect. Where I think when people go to talk about it, you've brought it up. It's a performance-led film with some cheeky one-liners and like the visage, a veneer of sophistication that is really just another superficial layer that reveals an even more superficial core.
I think if you don't think too much about it, it's really fun to watch for some people in a way where it's just like, oh yeah, like this is funny. He's quitting his job and all that, and it's like and like there's these arguments, but then there's also like interesting enough because like, hey, there's some like family drama going on, but it's like, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't. It really doesn't work. I don't think, and it's just
Mm-mm.
like if you look closer, you just get a worse movie.